Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Well, Mama don't allow no modern houses going on. Mama don't allow no modern houses going on. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna love my modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no modern houses going on.
Welcome to US Modernist Radio. Join George Smart and Frank King as they talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. Support the show by going to patreon.com/US Modernist Radio for all kinds of fun incentives to shamelessly empty your wallet. Today, US Modernist Radio welcomes cellist Joe Kwon of the Avett Brothers, along with architects Robby Johnston and Kerins. And now the host of the podcast with absolutely no fatalities during construction, George Smart and Frank King.
Welcome to the show. I'm George Smart with Frank King. Hey, Frank.
George?
So I understand that our theme song has wormed its way into your head?
Oh, Lord, I'm out there cutting the grass, and I find myself singing, Mama don't allow no grass cutting around here. Mama don't allow no grass cutting around here. I don't care what Mama don't allow. I'm going to cut my grass anyhow. Oh, God, I can't stop. It's an earworm.
Yeah, I wonder how many people are experiencing that same phenomenon. We'll have to see during the comments on the show.
At least 300, I'm guessing.
US Modernist Radio is underwritten by Sarah Sonk of Modern Houses Realty. When it's time to sell your modernist home, listing on MLS alone isn't enough. Reach out to an agent who loves modernist houses with the expertise, experience, and track record to close your deal. She's Sarah Sonk, 919-601-7339. And by modboxusa.com. Turn your mailbox into a modbox with one of Modbox USA's colorful, stylish, retro, mid-century modern mailboxes that complements your home's modern aesthetic and turns mail time into party time. See one now at modboxusa.com. And now here's Frank with the Modernist News.
Dateline Mosul in what once was called Southern Iraq, now some are calling the modern-day Caliphate, in what used to be the lovely modernist Ninawa International Hotel, ISIL, or ISIS, depending on, has opened its first five-star tourist destination and are calling it either the Hotel California or the Sharia Ton. It will provide luxurious accommodations in Mosul for its commanders. It has 262 rooms, 2 restaurants, 2 ballrooms, a gymnasium, among other facilities. Needless to say, the casino will be boarded up and the bars will serve no alcohol. Still, it ain't going to be cheap to stay. True believers will pay an arm and a leg per night. Infidels, a head. Seems a little steep, but hey, they do toss in that free orange jumpsuit. Dateline Westlake Hills, Texas, hitting the open market for the first time ever. This 1959 mid-century modernist ranch offers a bit of California modern in central Texas with the added bonus of defense against any zombie apocalypse. There it is. In the backyard of the 3-bedroom, 3-bath home is a perfectly preserved limestone fallout shelter. Built in 1961 by the first owner, a retired Air Force colonel. What did he know that we didn't? The underground refuge still retains the original retractable cots, canned goods, and I love this, periscope. Well, it's a bomb shelter without a periscope. The main resident delivers a typical, help me with this, George, EICHLER?
Eichler.
Yep, fair, the post and beam construction and open floor plan and tons of glass walls. There was one house in our neighborhood, my neighborhood, not a modernist one, but across the street from ours and between 2 of Milton Smalls on that side of the street, that had a bomb shelter. When the house sold, we and the new neighbors ventured underground. We found it damp, dank, and fully stocked. Scary, even more frightening. The shelter was built by Reverend O. Ye of Little Faith, and people wonder why I became an atheist. And finally, Dateline, Cupertino, California. Before he passed away, Steve Jobs commissioned a new office building. Apple is constructing an amazing new campus with architect Lord Norman Foster that is estimated to cost, wait for it, $5 billion. $1 billion more than the new World Trade Center complex, and 4 times what the Pentagon would cost to build today in today's dollars. For which, by the way, Sir Norman Foster received 15% of $5 billion. I did the math. That's $750 million.
Wow.
That'll put a little lead in your Ito-Ya pencil. I bet I know what Norman Foster wants for Christmas. Cost overruns. It's an absurdist minimalist spectacle, if there is such a concept. Apple's campus is an unattractive, have you seen it, giant black ring. It looks like the world's largest steel-belted radial, in the middle of which is a nature refuge. Get this, there will be more than 6,000 trees across 300 species, plus 15 acres of natural grasslands. Now, there's a good idea. A rainforest in a desert in the middle of a 10-year drought. Whose idea was that? Oh, and by the way, the Apple mothership is just for Apple. No civilians allowed.
Okay. Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
We have great guests today in the studio. Joe Kwon moved to the U.S. from South Korea and began playing the cello as a child. He veered off into computer science for a while, getting a degree from UNC Chapel Hill and working at IBM before returning to music as a career. In 2006, he played with the Avett Brothers, sitting down like a classic cellist for the first few moments before abandoning the chair to stand, dance, and rock like the rest of the band. He was asked to tour, and ever since has become a permanent fixture. Reportedly, Joe's cello never touches the floor during a concert. Joe is also a photographer and a foodie whose blog is Taste on Tour, and he's also a new modernist homeowner. His architects are our other guests, Robby Johnston and Kerins of Raleigh Architecture and Raleigh Construction. In middle school, Robby discovered his uncle's collection of architecture drawings. And, I guess that was pretty fortunate, Robby, because if I went to find one of my uncle's collections of drawings, I might not be so lucky. He attended UNC Charlotte's College of Architecture and was selected for the inaugural Belgium Study Abroad program. Robby worked with Michael Ross Kirsting and Tonic Design and Construction, winning many awards, including the design and construction of the first LEED certified modern home in North Carolina. In 2012, he co-founded with Craig the Raleigh Architecture Company and the Raleigh Construction Company. Craig is his good buddy from UNC Charlotte and fellow traveler to Belgium. They have since completed 15 modern residential projects and 15 commercial projects from Raleigh to Asheville. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, George. Good to be here.
Yeah. You all are examples of something really miraculous that's going on in downtown Raleigh, something that's never been done before, and that is you're establishing this beachhead of small, wonderfully designed, very modern homes in a way that is bringing really acclaim and acceptance by the community. Now, elsewhere in Raleigh and Oakwood, we've had a house that went up that was just, had a lot of controversy, but you guys have had a pretty easy time of it. Tell me how this started out and how you decided to go into that area of town.
Well, I have lived in downtown Raleigh for the last 10 years. This will be the 11th. Previously, I was a resident of Oakwood before moving out and had been there for about 7 years. My wife and I had renovated a home there and sold it with the intent of hopefully making a profit that would end in financing a construction loan for a new modern home. When we began searching for property, the only criteria is that it would be closer to downtown than Oakwood is. Our goal is to continue to move closer to the center of the city. We located 2 properties that were previously for sale on Edenton Street, East Edenton Street, specifically on the 500 block, and contacted the owner and went into an option to purchase. So we had 2 years to essentially sell our existing home and to finance a construction loan that would include closing on the land simultaneously within a 2-year period, plus finding another client to do the additional home.
That's a great deal.
It's a great deal. And, for us, a lot of that had to do with essentially creating what we refer to as a instant portfolio for ourselves, having the ability to immediately advertise something that we had designed and built from the ground up in the form of a single-family residential project in lieu of waiting for our first commission as an architecture firm. And specifically, we found that street interesting because there are no significant periods of development or architecture. There are no significant styles of architecture. There's multifamily, there's single family, there's commercial. It's very diverse in its architectural landscape, and we kind of thought, why not these two? They can just join the diversity club. And so far, we've gotten nothing but support from adjacent neighbors and neighbors from several blocks away. Everyone's been very thrilled to see the recent activity.
No torches coming down the hill to attack or anything like that?
Not that we've seen, although I'm usually at the office until I fall asleep at night. So, no, it's been quite the opposite. We also had almost 100% of everyone on that street, east and west for 3 blocks, sign a letter of support. Actually, not any letter. It was a notarized letter of support. Taylor Medlin, who works in our office, yes, his mother is a notary. She went door to door with me to meet every single neighbor and tell them our story and get their support.
Hi, I'm architect Robby Johnston, and this is my notary. Pay attention, architects. This is a tool in your toolkit that you'll want to keep in mind for your next development.
I would recommend it. Things seem to have little value without that endorsement. So yeah, that's the kind of the genesis of the story. And after we were successful in the venture of a variance and subdivision, we immediately began construction again on those homes and finished them a little over a year ago now. And as soon as they kind of took shape, they got out of the ground, people saw what was happening. They maybe weren't 100% sure as to what it was, but it was certainly provocative. And the phones began to ring literally daily. We were receiving multiple calls of people not necessarily wanting to go through the process of working with an architect from start to finish, but people who have been waiting to see something like that happen in downtown, which was single family, modern home that is being built to a bank appraisal. So it's within reach to a lot of people out there. It's not just something for the elite in this location.
Greg, in the beginning of this process, tell us a little bit about the neighborhood and how the neighborhood sort of took on the affinity to these buildings such that you would have this pent-up demand.
Sure. One thing that's interesting to note about the projects is that they were all built on vacant lots. And so, like Robby said, there's no predominant historic or any sort of architectural style or anything like that was on the street. And so having the vacant lots, we weren't displacing anybody necessarily. And so people were very happy to have us come in and have us be bringing new energy, bringing young families back into the neighborhood. That was one comment in particular. The people who live adjacent to Robby's house, which is 554, their family had been in that house for generations, a couple generations, and they were still there. And they were very happy that Robby and his young family were moving in because they wanted to have children back in the neighborhood.
Sure.
That hadn't happened in a long time. And so they were very welcoming of that and have since turned out to be really great neighbors. So.
Now, if I understand, your 2 houses that you built were not the first modern houses in the area, but they kind of made the critical mass to get things going.
On that block, I believe so. There is a momentum, of course, in Raleigh, like a lot of smaller southern cities or American cities, that people moving towards downtown and the reinvestment in downtown versus suburbia. And, I think we sort of were a little bit ahead of that in terms of that area of town. And specifically the aesthetic was something that was very appealing to a lot of people in a certain age group and a lot of people who were already downtown, but maybe didn't want a condo. They wanted a little bit of a yard. And so it wasn't hard for us to find people that wanted what we were doing.
Now, Joe Kwon, you were living in Durham at the time and traveling, of course, with the band all over the place. How did you run into these guys, and how did you decide that they were the ones that were going to design and build you a house?
I guess the connection was Robby, because Robby had worked on Scott Avit's house, my boss, And I like to point that out. He's my boss. He hates that. I hope he listens to this.
That was actually Robby and I's first project. We were moonlighting.
Right. And so Scott would often talk about this house that he's building out on his family's property, and he would show me, renderings of it on his, on his little phone, and I'd get really excited about it. And I never wanted to leave Durham. The thought of even building a house wasn't even present. And I was really just living through Scott's house and just kind of enjoying how it was progressing and seeing it go up and, walking through it. Finally, I was like, this is amazing. Just the openness of it, and it just felt great. And then it came time that my fiance at the time, or I guess she was just my girlfriend at the time.
She was.
Ended up going to NC State, getting her entomology degree. And
That's bugs, right?
bugs,
Okay.
yeah. And she got really fed up with that commute on 40 and couldn't do it anymore, and asked if I would be willing to move to Raleigh. And my whole thing was, well, I don't want to buy a house that I'm going to be displaced from while I renovate it and make it look the way that I want it to look. So I said, okay, we can move to Raleigh if you'll let me build a house. And it was very clear that I wanted to work with Raleigh Architecture Company because I had already spoken with them before. I could tell that we were all on the same page in terms of the community and bringing the community together rather than pushing a community away. And all these things were very important to me, as well as the green part of building, because my wife said that she would never build a house because the greenest house is the house you don't build. And in order for me to convince her
Very
to do
insightful.
that was to build in all these extra things into our house to make it offset some of the less green things of building a house. And so, Robby and Craig were both very open to the idea of doing anything that I would say, yeah, we got to do this. And they were all very positive and worked on ways of getting around hurdles that we came across. I'm sure that happens in every house. This is the first house I've ever built, and I can't wait to build another one already. And so we decided to build a house. And I had a friend who had just gotten his real estate license. And I said, Dave, do you want to try to help me find some land? And we initially looked in Robby's neighborhood because he was like, there are some open lots over here. And he just kind of gave us the heads up. And Dave just started cold calling people and got lucky. I feel like we were the last people to get lucky out there, too.
Yes, Joe Frank King here. Two questions. One, I love your girlfriend, now wife's comment. The greenest house that there is the one that's not built. So did she grow up in a yurt somewhere outside of Carborough? Or?
No, it wasn't so much a comment about that. It's just nothing is as green as buying a house that's already up.
Well,
yeah.
And you guys would love Oregon because you've just described pretty much 2/3 of the population of Eugene. Second question is, you and Scott are obviously living in modernist homes. Is there anybody else in the band in a modernist home? Is that a deal killer for somebody who wants to be in the band? Oh, I've got a Cape Cod. Keep walking.
No. I think Scott and I share a similar interest in aesthetic that extends beyond just the architecture. I think both of us like aesthetic, I would say, almost over other things. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm sure given the opportunity, any of the other guys in the band would love a modern house, but they just choose not to. It's, it's a process.
Robby, does this now that you're gotten those first two houses on the map, did you get more acclaim? Did it win some awards? Right?
Sure. We've had the good fortune of being represented on the AIA Triangle Residential Architecture Tour. Last year, both 554 and 556 East Edenton Street, the first two houses over there were selected to be part of that tour. And we also won a Matsumoto People's Choice Award last year as well for 556 East Edenton Street. 554 at the time did not yet have a certificate of occupancy, so we could not enter. But we look forward to entering it this year.
There you go.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
And most recently, as a matter of fact, Joe's house was selected for this coming year's AIA Residential Architecture Tour. So we've also had some great publicity. The blogosphere has, blew up there for a while after a couple of the awards went out, and everyone was kind of getting their Google alerts. And we've also had some great local coverage through the N&O. We will be having a feature article in the Downtowner magazine coming out any day now as well that we're really excited about. So I think the good fortune of all of that is that it's all been positive press. We haven't really had to back our way out of anything. So it was certainly worth the risk because we completely rolled the dice playing, architect, developer, contractor, and in my case, owner. And as difficult as parts of the process were regarding variances and subdivisions and patience, do it all over again if I had the chance.
Is there a Craig Kerins house in the works?
We'll see. I actually just started looking this week. So
okay.
We decided only one of us should be building a house at a time.
Good rule for a design firm.
That's a great idea.
When you come in on your first day at this company, you have to sign a pledge to only build one house at a time.
All of our employees have something under construction, but as far as the owners go, we can only be doing one ground up at a time. It's part of working in an architecture firm that you have to, your kitchen has to be half finished or something like that. So.
The shoemaker's children need shoes, right?
Absolutely.
You've got the first two houses underway. The phone is sort of ringing off the hook. Are people wanting to just duplicate this on their lot, or are they wanting to build a new, or how do you triage all these inquiries that are coming in, Craig?
A lot of people, I think Robby mentioned this earlier, but yes, a lot of people actually sometimes are interested in buying the plans or, duplicating the house, but we have to kind of explain to them that that's not really what we do. We're custom architects, and we start with a process that yields a different product every single time because it's based on the site, it's based on the client, and we're not selling plans. So
if my cousin Earl from Hickory would like to get the hands on those plans and put something up out and using some old materials from that Sears project he did a few years ago, you're not going to let that happen, huh?
I suppose everyone has a price, but
if he asks like that. No, we're not selling plans, but
okay.
It's a custom process, and that's really what one of the great things about modern architecture is that it is a process and it yields different results every time. So it's site specific, it's client specific.
What did that yield to next? After the first two houses, what then occurred?
Well, so we hooked up with Joe, and there's also two other houses, one's next to Joe, one's on the corner from Joe. Again, we went through the process with private clients, and Joe's house is complete. The one next to Joe's house is complete, and then the one on the corner within a couple weeks.
Their move-in dates essentially June 1st.
Yep, the other client moved in last weekend. So,
when clients come to you guys, do they come in besides an aesthetic kind of wish? Do they come in with other passions they're trying to pursue? Like, for instance, I know Joe is really into food. We're going to talk with him about that in a minute. But how do you shape a house around somebody's passions and interests?
Well, Joe's house is a great example because, like you said, Joe is very into food, into cooking, as well as entertaining. I've actually been to some parties there to see the house in full effect and to visit Joe. But he has a very large circle of
Joe
friends.
is a feature of Joe's house, yes.
But Joe has a very large extended family, I believe, as well as a circle of friends. And so his whole house is about socializing and is about being centered around the kitchen. And so, there's a giant double height space at the very center of the house. The kitchen's right there. And everything basically revolves around that. So the whole house circulates around this double height space, around the kitchen. It accommodates, lots of people, accommodates big meals, big, cooking. And so that's a great example of, a house designed very specifically for the client with that respect. And then the back of the house opens up. Their backyard, if you want to look at being site-specific, focuses on this giant oak tree, probably over 100 years old. And so the whole back of it goes, kind of kitchen, dining, and then there's an accordion door that opens up. So the whole back of the house opens up into a screen porch, into this view of the backyard. So really accommodate, that experience of being there as a guest, having great meals.
And Joe, you've got a really killer kitchen. Tell us about what you can do in that thing.
I can sleep on the countertops, which happened, I think, once already. We have pretty big parties, large enough that I think one of the biggest ones right after we moved in, we had 100 people over, and we were producing enough food out of the kitchen to feed 100 people. We had 3 different people cooking at once.
What were you serving?
I don't remember. This is going to sound awful, but I'm usually drunk by then, so I don't remember. I usually have a few drinks while I'm cooking, and then by the time guests showed up, I've had more than that. I sound like an alcoholic now.
This is exactly how we talked you into doing a house.
Yeah, exactly. You got me drunk.
You remember New York, right?
You weren't, but you were asleep on the countertop, right?
Yeah.
He's planking.
It's not so bad. It's just very, I don't know. It's just about the kitchen's extra, the distance between the stove and the sink is super wide, so you can have people who are actually washing dishes and prepping next to them and, cooking something next to them. And then there's an oven next to that, so you can have someone work in the oven. And then on the other side of the island, you can have at least 3 people who are working on prep and then at least 2 people on stove side. So it's just made to harness a lot of.
It sounds like a restaurant, not a kitchen.
Joe actually has the biggest horsepower vent hood we've put in a house to date. So,
yeah, it's one of the things that I wanted. I guess the only thing that I wanted out of the house was a big kitchen. I wanted a kitchen that I could invite chefs over to cook in and have them feel comfortable as well.
Cool.
So I talked to Ashley Christensen a little bit about it, like, oh, what do you recommend for this? And so she's like, oh, this is a great oven. You should get this oven. I was like, okay, I'll just get that oven. Things like that I wanted to make it so my friends who are chefs could come over and they would feel comfortable cooking in the kitchen as well. Getting recommendations like, do I need a French top? And Ashley was like, no. And so we need a French top. And it just made it clear cut. What I needed to bring in to make it as minimal as possible at the same time big enough that I could harness a full-size kitchen, production kitchen.
So what's your favorite meal now? Is it still Spam and eggs like when you were a kid, or something? Has that been updated a bit?
It's updated a bit. I guess this week, because it changes every week. I get really big into one, nationality of food. I think like 2 weeks ago, I was really into making Indian curries, and I was making curry every night. So the house smells like curry for a week. This week I'd have to say I'm back into Korean food. Korean food always comes back. I always want to try to perfect my mom's recipes, which I feel like they need to be documented at this point, and I'm just trying to make the dishes taste like my mom's do, so I can write them down and turn it into a book for her.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
Yeah.
Robby, what's next? You've got 5 houses almost complete. What's going on next for you guys?
Well, there continues to be more downtown work. We are hoping to have additional kind of immediate impact in the Hungry Neck North, which is the neighborhood that we've built the first 5 houses in. We've built the houses, but we've really kind of reinvigorated and, rebuilt the community. Outside of that, we are currently working on 3 additional houses downtown, just north of Chavis Park, with developer Jason Queen, who was recently awarded the RFP from the city of Raleigh for the Stone's Warehouse. So someone who also is heavily invested in the community, who wants to see good things happen and who wants to really, again, rebuild a community, and choosing to do it through modern architecture because he feels like it is the new historic, as he's termed it. It'll be the houses we're discussing in 50 years, not everything else around them. And so he's invested heavily in our services, and we actually have 3 houses coming out of the ground as we speak there.
Robby, Frank King again. Hey, by the way, my job during high school was working as a lifeguard at the Chavis Park pool, which I am guessing is a stone's throw from the project you guys are doing there in Chavis Heights. It's
right there. You can probably see it in the winter.
Yeah, I'm guessing the neighborhood's changed a bit since I was down there. Hey, you guys, both you and Craig are pretty well versed in Belgian beer, which I am not. 2 questions. Is that how you convinced Joe to build a kitchen that sleeps 6? And B, is that your secret to a good party, the Belgian beer?
You can never go wrong with the Belgian beer.
Amen.
I don't think we learned a lot about architecture while we were in Belgium, but man, we really learned a lot about their beer.
Yeah, beer is good for parties and contracts. Has the same effect in both places. So Craig jokes. We really did a lot of traveling, and we saw a good bit of Europe while we were there, and we certainly invested our fair share in Belgian beer. But that was really, that trip for us kind of really shaped us and who we are, and seeing a culture who gave heavy appreciation to the things they were building, and not only what they were building, but how they were building them and why they were building them. So our lens may have been a little blurry for that 5 to 6 months, but it was certainly a trip that pretty much led to what we're doing right now.
So the secret is you have a notary and some Belgian beer, and you're a sales machine.
I would also recommend adding jars of North Carolina honey. That came with the notary.
Really?
Yeah, some might call that bribery. I don't know.
All right, that's excellent. Thank you guys for coming this afternoon. It's really been great to have you on the show and tell your story about the house and this development and this sort of new movement of modernist houses in that part of Raleigh. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having us, George.
US Modernist Radio is underwritten by Sarah Sonk, the real estate agent who loves modernist houses just as much as you do. 919-601-7339. And by modboxusa.com and their swanky, colorful, stylish, retro mid-century modern mailboxes. Thanks for listening. I'm George Smart with Frank King. Take us out, Tom.
Visit US Modernist Radio on the web at usmodernistradio.org for links about people and buildings mentioned today on the show. US Modernist Radio is recorded at Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song is performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl. Meanwhile, follow us on Twitter at US Modernist or email us at comments@usmodernistradio.org. US Modernist Radio is a production of North Carolina Modernist Houses, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. George and Frank and I will be back in 2 weeks for another cantilevered, floor-to-ceiling, less is more, concrete and steel edition of US Modernist Radio.